Hello everybody and welcome back to the ESL UK Premiership. I am here once again with Vedius and my own name is Munchables. Probably should introduce myself since we're not on camera. And we are here for our third game of this best of three between the National University Esports League and XL Esports. What a best of three this has been so far. If the third game matches up to the previous two, I'm not even going to have a voice left for Choke versus FM later.
Yeah, what a crazy game too. It's just a matter of NUEL not playing the way that we were expecting them to. You saw Shaven Tortoise going for that early aggressive gank in the bottom. It failed, and then he did not gank after that. Not once. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why it happened. I don't know why he decided not to go for any sort of plays. There are opportunities for him to gank in the top lane. I mean, think about it. You've got Victoriana Galio, just flash, drop the Idol of Durand, and you've got a huge amount of damage available to you when combined with the Kindred. It's not completely beyond imagination to get a kill onto Billy very early on, who didn't actually die that game. Same for the bottom lane. Yeah, they were put under a lot of pressure, but there were opportunities available to them. But Shaven Tortoise just stopped. And that allowed Synergy to play his style, play a pretty passive early game, and then set up for gank after gank after gank in the middle lane, and eventually it paid off. Ray and Mort fell behind, Ped got very strong, he was then available to provide the utility for his team that they needed. Icy could play as aggressively as you want, Billy could play aggressively as you want, and they were always supported by how strong Ped was. And I think we can both agree that Icy is a pretty aggressive guy that could use a bit of support from time to time.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. And I mean, Tristana is a champion that perfectly fits that kind of play style. You're going to be able to go for those crazy aggressive plays and be able to sort of get away with it. And we saw that a few times in that last game, using Tristana really to her limits and doing it incredibly successfully. And now we see for the third game in a row, Shaven Tortoise is going to be on this Kindred. First game, we saw him do phenomenally well. Second game, much less so. We'll see if he can reevaluate what happened in the last game, learn from his mistakes, and bring out the first game performance once again.
Saw Billy hovering over the Heimerdinger. He's like, do you remember this? Does it bring you nightmares? I wouldn't be surprised to see him bring it out. I'd be surprised if he brought it out this early on in the rotation. I feel as though it's more of a counter pick rather than a first pick. And with so many of the champions still available for both teams, it would surprise me a little bit. The thing is, note that we've seen Soraka bans come out every single game from XL. They've changed things up. They banned Anivia, they banned Tahm Kench, and they banned the Lulu. The North bans haven't changed. They feel as though that they're just going to try and repeat their performance from the first game. But now, with so many different things available, XL are actually going to go for this very early Victor pick. And I quite like that rotation coming out from XL. I think Ped decided to go for a bit of a combination. You know, first game he had a very aggressive champion in LeBlanc. Second game he had a very utility-based support champion in the lane, the former Lulu. And now he's going with a combination of the two. Someone who takes a little while to ramp up but can do huge amounts of damage coming into the mid-game and provides a fair amount of utility. So, doesn't really surprise me to see something like this coming out from Ped. But it would surprise me to see a LeBlanc come out from Ray and Mort.
Yeah, and it is going to be locked in. So Victor versus LeBlanc looks to be our mid lane matchup for this game. Drawls, by the looks of things, is going to get his beloved Jinx once again as well. So a couple of comfort champions locked in. And as well, Ray and Mort playing... I mean, this is... I want to say exactly the same thing about what I said for Ped in the first game when he played LeBlanc. It's not the style of champion that we typically see Ray and Mort play. He's usually on... I mean, this series, we've seen him on Anivia and Orianna. They're kind of like the Season 2 farm champions, which is the exact opposite playstyle to how you have to play LeBlanc.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising. We're also seeing this Jinx come out. Drawls, I've already talked about how this is just his champion. It's something that he's super comfortable on. But then Icy just feels as though that he can abuse that. Drawls hasn't actually demonstrated, especially during the laning phase, that he can do very much with the champion. He relies very much on how well Mazrim can control the lane, And when Mazrim isn't on a support that can have full control over the lane, then Draws really starts to suffer, and you could see that in the last game. Exabyte and Icy really ran away with the laning phase, getting first blood down there, taking the first tower of the game, and off the back of that we're easily able to transition into a very heavy lead. I'm not surprised to see this Thresh come out. This means that Icy and Exabyte are once again going to be in a favourable matchup if Mazrim decides to go for this fabled Soraka pick that he's been holding on to and has actually been banned away for such a long time.
Yeah, well, we saw Mazrim playing the Soraka last week, and I mean, they didn't win the game, but I didn't feel like he played badly on it. And I feel like the issue with Mazrim picking the Soraka last time was that Mazrim had been their player that was making things happen. He was the playmaker. He was the one that had played the Blitzcrank, getting those perfect hooks. And I mean, we've seen it in this series alone. Mazrim has been playing out of his mind, doing some awesome work on the Tahm Kench. And just, he always seems to be the player that is there making things happen. So when you put him on things like a Soraka, suddenly he doesn't have that playmaking ability on his side anymore.
Yeah, it does kind of turn out that way, but what it does provide is it allows you to provide the utility for your AD carry. I've already talked about how Drools relies ridiculously heavily on Mazrim, especially to get through the laning phase, and when you're playing a Soraka, that's pretty much all Soraka does. Sits under the tower, keeps you alive, you're pretty much going to win every single trade, and I really like that coming out from the side of the NUEL. I think this is going to do them quite well. I think that the matchup once again goes in favour of XL, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. Very similar composition to what we saw in the first game, but the major difference is it's LeBlanc pick. Now, Ray and what we saw provide a huge amount of control with the Anivia that he ran. That Glacial Storm was so impactful in those team fights. But now with the LeBlanc, it's changed to a little bit more of a pick style composition. It's more of a, you know, we're going to use the Maokai to lock a single target down. We're then going to follow up with the Flame Chompers. We're going to use LeBlanc to drop that target as quickly as possible. And then we're going to try and clean up with the Jinx and the Kindred. And Kindred's going to provide the Lamb's Respite for a bit of utility if we need it. So their composition is, again, it's changed up a little bit. But XL going for very heavy team fight, locking in this Rumble as their final pick.
Yeah, very excited for the Rumble. I was getting ready to spam Resident Sleeper in chat when I saw the Malphite versus Maokai, but we are going to have a champion that actually does stuff during the laning phase, so that's good. We are going to see a little bit of action up in that top lane, and Rumble, obviously not the most mobile of champions, relatively easy to gank if you can get that flash out, and I mean, we've been saying Shaven Tortoise has to be more aggressive, he has to go for these early ganks. Potentially could be a lane that he decides to camp.
Let's remember yesterday, Flash from Team Pariah playing that Rumble up in the top lane. He got camped to hell. There was a tent sale going up there, and the jungler from TCA just was having all of them. He wanted all the tents, and there was absolutely nothing that Flash could do from that consistent gank pressure. And Shaven Tortoise could look to do the same here to Billy. He could look to just constantly camp him over and over and over again. Very easy gank setups when you have a Maokai in lane. He throws down that Twisted Advance, locks up Billy in position, allows Shaven Tortoise to get the damage down that he needs to. He's also got the Mounting Dread available to him. He's got a very impactful slow. Billy could be in some trouble right here, and I feel as though this game, what Synergy in particular needs to do is concentrate on vision control. He needs to get a very early Sightstone, he needs to be warding up the river, he needs to be getting as much vision down onto where Shaven Tortoise is at every point in the early stage of the game, because we've already seen so many times if Shaven Tortoise does not have a good early game, then he does not do very much throughout the rest of the game. He tried one gank last game, and then that was it, compared to his first game where he pretty much controlled the early game by himself. So Shaven Tortoise seems to be very kind of a swingy player. It's a bit debatable as to which Shaven Tortoise is going to turn up this game. So keep an eye on these two junglers because they're going to be massive in this game.
Yeah, I've just noticed a very sort of similar style of composition between the NUEL's first game composition and this game. Obviously, they can't run the Tahm Kench this time. It was banned out, so Draws isn't going to be as safe. But with the Soraka there, that kind of fills a similar role in that you are going to be able to keep your AD carry safe. But also, without the Anivia, the protection of the egg, they still are going to be so hard to kill. I mean, Soroka, you've got Lamb's Respite coming out from the Kindred as well. There is so much here to protect the carries of the National University Esports League's comp, and that's without a Lulu. Like, most protect the carry comps, you see a Lulu in there, but actually with the introduction of Kindred, the Lulu is less necessary now.
The biggest problem for the side of the NUEL is that yes, they're very good at keeping a single target alive, and obviously with Lamb's Respite, on top of the Maokai ultimate that naturally reduces damage anyway, it does make them a little bit harder to kill, but you have to remember that XL are running very teamfight composition. You know, they have the Equalizer available from Rumble, they've got that ridiculous Chaos Storm, as well as Icy just jumping around all over the place, getting a huge amount of damage. Synergy's going to be able to break the team up. Many times, actually, we saw him use that explosive cast to knock people out of the Lamb's Respite, and plays like that could make it very difficult for NUEL to actually protect a single target. Imagine Maokai sets off for the engage, and then what you do is you use your explosive cast to knock the rest of the NUEL away, and you just focus down the Maokai, and then without that front line, the rest of your team is very squishy, very easy for the rest of XL to clean up. XL have many options available to them this time to play around NUEL's composition, compared to their first game where they were very much, we need to win the early game or we're going to lose. So they can play a lot more passively, they don't have to win the early game, they have a very strong mid game, and their late game is also ridiculous. It's just going to be a matter of how well these lanes go, because that seems to be the difference. XL have a good laning phase, they win. If NUEL have a good laning phase, they win. And it's very difficult for either team to really work their way back into it. So junglers, very important. Laning phase, very important. I feel like this game 3 is going to be heavily decided by how well these two start the game off.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see which team is going to be able to pull ahead in that early game. We see a lot of mastery banners across this loading screen. A lot of players here on very comfortable champions for themselves, so maybe that is going to be a factor that comes into play. We are going to see Icy on that Tristana once again. We saw him run rampant on that champion last game. We'll see if he's going to be able to successfully do the same in this matchup. And as well, we've got Synergy on the Gragas. I talked about it before. This is a champion he's very comfortable on, and you saw that in the last game. He did phenomenally well on the Gragas, and he was able to translate that into a victory for his team. And we'll see if he's going to be able to replicate that success in this third and final game of the best of 3 between the NUEL and XL Esports. Both teams with a win on the board, and both teams with a very convincing win as well so far.
The thing that I also want to bring our attention to is the mental dexterity of the NUEL. They're a very new team full of new players that the NUEL have been able to pick up. Some of the best and brightest available to the National University Esports League. But XL as a team have been playing for a very long time. I mean, I was originally a member. I know this team, and these players have been around for a long time. They know what it's like to lose, and they know what it's like to come back. Now the momentum is in their favor. They have a win on the board, and they know they only need one more to close out this series and avoid that last spot in the ESL Premiership. And what are the NUEL thinking right now? Because they went off of a very dominant performance. Last game was arguably a bit of a stomp. And can they maintain that mental dexterity to continue going? Are they sitting there thinking, it's all right, guys, it was a bad game 2, we can come back in game 3? Or are they thinking, oh no, this is game 3, if we lose this, we're out. We don't have a safety net anymore. And because they're such a new team, that could very well be a big factor. And maybe that's the reason for the LeBlanc pick. Maybe Rainwort feels like, I need to carry this game, I need to make an impact because I really don't want us to lose.
Perhaps we'll have to see as we push on forward towards the laning phase. Even less than we've seen, even less action than we've seen in the previous level 1s. We did see both previous games, both teams going in for deep wards, trying to deny any kind of lane swap scenario. And we are going to see just very, very safe starts from both teams here, starting off in their jungles, not even going for any deep wards, not wanting to get caught out. And I mean, third game in a best of 3, right now they are playing for the seedings in the promotional tournament to get back into the next season of the Premiership. They need to be playing safe right now. They cannot afford to make a big risk and it go horribly wrong.
The thing is for XL is I don't actually want them to play super passive. I want them to do exactly what they did last game and not try and kill their opponents, but just dominate the lane. just have control over what's going on. Control the vision, control the pace of the minions, control how much damage is coming down onto the towers. It's all about control for the side of XL, and if they can do that, then I feel as though they will come out ahead. They just feel like mechanically the slightly stronger team, and with the more experience that they seem to have, that they can come out ahead, but that's not to say that the NUEL are completely out of this yet. I'm looking forward to seeing how well Rayenmort does on this LeBlanc. He has decided to go for the teleport. I'm interested to see whether or not he can make that work for him compared to the Ignite that we saw from Ped in Game 1. But draws with this Soraka in the bottom lane, this could be an interesting one.
Oh, the hook lands though already, and Drawls is in so much trouble. The Ignite is going to be there. One more auto attack is going to not quite be enough. Drawls turns it around. Beautiful play by Mazrim. Keeps his AD carry alive. And that is going to be 2 summoner spells for 3 summoner spells in favor of XL.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Soraka is annoying as hell. It looks like you're about to win a trade, and even through the Ignite, Mazrim is able to keep his AD carry alive. And this is traditionally why you need to focus the Soraka, which makes the lane very difficult. I'm just going to focus the support. Well, that means that the AD carry can get as much free damage off as he wants. So it's a bit of a tough lane to play. They do a fantastic job of forcing so many summoners out from draws, and now they have control of the lane. Now the hook lands onto draws, but I think that's more about sending a message than anything else.
He's playing as the Joker for this game, apparently. He's looking to send a message. It's not about the money for him. Over in the mid lane, we do see Rayenmort starting to throw out quite a bit of pressure here onto Ped, getting some decent damage down. Yeah, he was forced away from a pretty tricky situation. Rayenmort doing a good job on this LeBlanc. Needs to be a little bit careful with his position. He's going to take a tower shot there, but very, very far up the lane here, and Ped should be able to freeze this for a little bit.
And this is the camp that we were talking about. Billy could be in some trouble.
Billy already having to flash away from that one. It is going to mean that he's safe, but with the lane pushing against him and the threat of the jungler coming near, it could be pretty tricky for him to escape if we do see a regank coming out from Shaven Tortoise. Victorio choosing not to freeze though, choosing to just push that lane out there. Oh, and first blood happened. I didn't even notice.
Sorry, I thought you were aware of what's going on in the bottom lane. My apologies, I should have called that one out. Yeah, Synergy came round from the back. They had no vision in the bottom lane for the side of the NUEL, and that allowed it very easily for Synergy to flank around from behind. He then lands the flash body slam onto Drawls, and this time there were 3 members hitting onto Drawls rather than just the 2. Obviously, without his flash available, there was no way for him to get out, but more action is kicking off in the middle lane.
Yeah, Rayenmort getting taken incredibly low. Doesn't know which side is the clone though, and actually Ped is going to be the one that's in a little bit of trouble as Shaven Tortoise comes in. The percent damage doing so much. He doesn't have flash, but it is going to be Rayenmort who does. Flashes forward, picks up the kill for himself. Beautiful gank there by Shaven Tortoise.
Very unfortunate for Ped. I knew exactly what he was thinking right there, and it was, if only I had one more ability available to me, I could have at least gotten 1 kill out of the 2 of them. They both took a single tower shot, and if Ped could have just landed his death ray, he would have been fine. But right now, Victorio could be about to lose his life.
He certainly could. He's being burnt to a crisp. Nice arcane smash and then flash combo gets him to safety. And Arcane Smash, for those who might not know, it turns your opponent around. So specifically against Rumble, it denies a tick of Flame Spitter, which is a weird mechanic. It's sort of a specific counter to Rumble, but Ped trading very well in that mid lane, dodging out from the ethereal chains. And across the board, it's relatively even here. Obviously, both teams now with a kill. But the question is, who does the kill go onto? LeBlanc and Tristana. I mean, both incredibly strong to have those early kills on. Drawl's going to get ignited once again. Icy jumping forward, but he is going to be exhausted. And once again, Drawls is going to be able to walk away with his life.
But this is exactly what XL need to do. They need to constantly force Drawls out of his summoner spells. They need to constantly put him on the back foot, and they can just take this tower away for free, and Tortoise isn't doing anything to stop them. Look at that explosive charge. What a... XL playing the lane exactly the way that they need to. It doesn't matter if they're not getting kills, because it just comes back to this control. Look at the CS differential that's already starting to develop. The damage to tower difference is absolutely huge, and off the back of that, But hang on, enough of that. Synergy is caught in the river.
Oh, Synergy caught up by the ethereal chains. The Mimic does not land though, so a little bit of damage missing out here. Synergy gonna go back in as the equalizer falls. Synergy drops though, and Tortoise is gonna be able to flash over the wall to safety. And now it's Billy and Ped trying to escape from this one. That's gonna be the ethereal chains locking Ped down. They're trying to land the CC as Billy is looking to finish off Rayenmort. Ped and Rayenmort both incredibly low, but Billy chased the wrong clone, and now Ped is gonna be going down. The last auto attack comes out from Rayenmort, and that is going to be a 2-0 in favour of the NUEL.
Synergy was just completely out of position there. He shouldn't have been in the middle of the river. He tried to fight Shaven Tortoise over control of the Scuttle Crab, and it allowed the rest of NUEL to collapse onto him and bring him down. That was very nice rotations coming out from the NUEL, especially to get away with losing absolutely no one. But for Ped right there, I was just keeping an eye on his flash timer, and it was just about to come off cooldown, and just as it comes off, the last auto attack comes out from Rayenmort, so he's unable to get away with his life. And that's going to be 3 kills now on top of Rayenmort, a much stronger LeBlanc performance compared to what we saw from Ped in Game 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the tower in the bottom lane incredibly low. Icy and Exabyte not deciding to commit to that objective just yet. They want to try and be able to deny minions as long as they can. Obviously, 12 CS lead built up so far for Icy, as well as the kill. He's going to be feeling very comfortable with a 600 gold lead that he's managed to build up for himself in that bottom lane. Synergy hanging around this bottom side as well. But honestly, the real story of the scoreboard right now is just look at Rayenmort. 3-0, equal in CS to his lane opponent. Well on the way towards that Morellonomicon. If he can keep this up, he is going to be absolutely terrifying.
The thing is, for Rayenmort now, it's about whether or not he can transition that into anywhere else. The thing about LeBlanc is, yeah, it's all well and good being 3-0, but what are you going to do with that 3-0? Because coming into teamfights, the best you can do is kill off a single target, and when you're playing against a Tristana, that's easier said than done. So we'll have to see whether or not he can actually transition that, but you know, Rayenmort in Game 1, he had a fantastic performance. He wasn't especially lane dominant, but his impact all across the map and in teamfights was superb. Game 2, he really got camped very hard. He really struggled to have an impact in that game, and now coming into Game 3, he's decided, I've had enough, I want to change the game up, I want to have an impact, so he's gone for this LeBlanc pick, and so far it's working out for him very, very well.
It certainly is. 3 kills on the board. Ped not going to be too pleased with the start of this game, but still plenty of time to come back into this one. Only 9.5 minutes into the game as the Dragon is going to be started off by XL. I see kicking this one off, but actually taking a whole lot of damage, and they don't seem to be able to commit to this one. The NUEL have come to intercept them, but Exabyte maybe gone a little bit too deep for this one, as he is going to fall incredibly early on in this fight. Shaven Tortoise is tanking the Dragon though. He's incredibly low as Rayenmort gets caught out by the Chaos Storm. Is not quite going to fall though, as Victorio does so much damage. Why can a Maokai do that damage? As Icy being bullied out here. Drools trying to support that happy little tree as he tries to bully away the enemy team, but all in all, neither team can quite commit to starting off this Dragon. Mazrim starting to run a little bit low on HP. He's going to start to run out of ability to just keep his team topped like this.
Right there, Exabyte was just completely out of position. I could see what he was trying to do. He wanted to set up the flank, but he wasn't quite able to make it work. But hang on, because Dragon...
Oh, the rocket does not quite connect to Synergy. Equalizer did go down, but it's not going to be enough to deny the Dragon. Shaven Tortoise will smite that one away in the end. And XL are bullied away. They're forced off of that objective, and it is going to be yet another tiny little advantage that the NUEL can pick up. They're slowly but surely starting to turn these little advantages into something more. They have a Dragon on the board now, but if you take a look at the gold, they are only 1,000 ahead, so still need to try and turn this into something more substantial.
The thing is, you have to remember that these guys were only formed for the second half of the ESL Premiership. They have not been playing together for a very long time, but to recognize that they have a 3-0 LeBlanc that can punish the fact that Victor has no completed items yet, Rumble is a little bit far behind because he hasn't completed any items yet, and Synergy isn't even level 6, is very smart from their team. They recognize their power spikes. They know that LeBlanc is very strong at this early stage, and they're abusing that fact to enable them to pick up these neutral objectives. It's really impressive teamwork with how they play around the dragon, how they manage the aggro, and how they sort out their target focus. And I'm just really impressed with how this team has only recently come together, but already putting XL on the back foot in this game 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just doing a phenomenal performance. And honestly, Rayenmort, I feel has been he's kind of picked this LeBlanc almost to show Ped up in this match. Ped not having the most fantastic LeBlanc game in that first one, and Rayenmort picking this one up and now kind of saying, this is how you play LeBlanc. This is how you win a lane. And now, hopefully for him, he's going to say this is how you transition the LeBlanc lead into a mid-game. And we'll see if the NUEL, are going to be able to do that and turn this into something more. Much smaller lead this game than we've seen in either of the other games so far.
It just comes back to this jungle difference. Notice how Shaven Tortoise, he gets a nice gank off in the top lane, forces the flash out of Billy. He then rotates down to the mid lane and actually gets a kill onto Ped. And while he's doing this, he's still maintaining vision control. And Synergy hasn't been able to get any successful ganks off. He got a very late level 6, and that's why he's a full level behind without having even completed his Cinder Hulk yet. And it's really just the story of Shaven Tortoise once again. He's been the one facilitating the early game for the NUEL, and this is something that we said needed to change. Last game, he only ganked once throughout the entire game, but this game, he's having a much larger impact, and you can see that with the score of Rayenmort right now.
Yeah, Ped getting chunked out there, the Mimic doing a lot of damage. Couldn't quite connect the Ethereal Chains, though. That is going to be a little bit of damage on tower. All they need to do is just rinse, repeat this while Icy is down in the bottom lane. Maybe looking to try and catch out this AD carry as he tries to roam up towards that mid lane, but not quite going to be able to find him there. And both teams just trying to maintain control of the vision around this river area, just trying to make sure that the enemy team can't comfortably stroll into their side of the map without really any punishment coming out from it. And now it's going to be XL on the aggressive here, looking to try and siege the tower. Nice little bit of wave clear comes out from Rayenmort though, and should be able to deny this push for now.
The thing is that you have to recognize the NUEL actually don't have that much wave clear. Yeah, they have the distortion, the Mimic distortion from Rayenmort, but it's not a fantastic wave clear ability. And yeah, they also have the Jinx rockets available, but still it's not the most ideal form of wave clear. And because of how good Icy is at taking towers on that Tristana, and with the great siege available from Ped on the Victor, it could become a problem for the side of the NUEL coming into the later stages of the game. It's just going to be a matter of, once again, how well they can control this mid-game stage that we're transitioning into, because they have a good lead. It is only 500 gold, but I would largely argue that is because of the tower differential between the two teams. The item difference is pretty big, and they could look to punish that. Right now, the Rayenmort going very aggressive on the Ped.
He is indeed, and Ped is looking to drop just immediately, completely silenced by Mazrim there. Just locked up, silenced on his spot, and that is going to be him going down. Exabyte going to be able to escape with his life from this one. Shaven Tortoise trying to hunt him down. The rocket just goes slightly wide of Exabyte. Don't think it would have finished him off anyway with it just being the level 6 rocket. But in the meantime, we see Victorio finally taking an advantage up in this top lane, and 20 CS ahead as well of Billy right now. Billy, someone we kind of herald as being incredibly lane dominant, starting to fall behind this Maokai.
Victorio on this Gragas is having a great game. Hook lands onto
Oh,
Jules.
Exabyte has done so well to land these hooks onto Jules. He does it once again, but the healing is going to be more than enough. And it's going to be Exabyte, the 1-4 synergy with a nice flash knockup. Beautiful equalizer, but it's not enough to finish anybody off. Rayenmort is caught, but he flashes over the wall. And everybody, once again, escaping from the NUEL.
The thing is, when you're fighting against this NUEL team, you have to focus the Soraka. There's no way you're going to be able to get through her heals that she is constantly providing for the rest of her team. There is a reason that people have been banning Soraka away from Mazrim, and that is because of how competent and how good he is on the champion. And right there you can see, even though Drulz gets hooked up and everything gets thrown on top of him, Mazrim is there to back him up, and this is exactly the way that the NUEL like to play. Mazrim being that support for Drulz, making sure that he doesn't die, with Tortoise and Rayenmort constantly doing damage on the backline, and with that Lamb's Respite it just becomes even harder to get any sort of picks. And because of how far behind Ped actually is, they're just having an incredibly tough time of actually coming out ahead in these team fights. So I feel like they need to stall the game out a little bit longer. They need to wait. They need to get to a point at which they can just straight up shut down that Mazrim. But I think the longer the game goes, the harder it's going to get.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one, especially if Rainmort can continue to snowball like this. If Rainmort continues to stay ahead, he'll be able to find himself in a position where all he needs to do is find one little misstep from Ped, from Examite, from Icy, and he will be able to just eliminate them immediately. Turn it into a 4 versus 5, and it's not like it's even a commitment for LeBlanc. Her ultimate is not exactly a long cooldown, so if they can find those opportunities, they're going to be able to just blow this map wide open for themselves. That's going to be a second dragon going across to the NUEL now, extending their gold lead to 3,000 gold as well. The NUEL starting to really look to be in a comfortable position here.
Yeah, and notice now that with the tower advantage, as well as all the kills that they've been able to pick up, they've extended the gold to 3,000. And this is putting XL a bit on the back foot. Now it's going to be a matter of, can XL find an avenue to come back from? Can they get a team fight that will work for them? Or are they just going to allow the NUEL to control the rest of the game and close this one out? It would be a bit of a surprise to see the NUEL come out ahead, but after their first game dominant performance, they seem to find a strategy that works for them, which is mainly revolved around putting a nice tanky member up in the top lane, having this extra threat coming out from Shaven Tortoise, and pretty much using your support to keep your AD carry alive as often as possible, because that strategy just seems to work so well for them. So many people like to focus down draws, and having a support that can just keep him alive seems to be a strategy that works out very well for the NUEL, and with this Soraka pick, they're doing a great job of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and Rainmort going quite aggressive onto Ped, but can't quite land the ethereal chains there. Just going to get a tiny bit of damage down. Icy pushing out this bottom lane. In the meantime, we did see a little bit of a rotation come out from the NUEL, but not going to be able to get there in time to quite punish that one. And he's going to be able to walk away with his life. Icy doing a very good job, and in fact Ped as well, both of them doing a very good job to stay ahead in CS, despite the early game not really going ideally for them. We see a 20 CS lead in the mid lane for Ped, and we see a 10 CS lead down in the bottom lane for Icy, so very well played by those guys to stay ahead despite other situations.
The thing is, looking across the gold, the biggest discrepancy is actually between the two junglers. The fact that Shaven Tortoise has been involved in 6 kills from the NUEL means that he is so far ahead in gold. Victoria, though, he's probably dead.
He is very dead right now. 4-man knock-up with the Arcade Smash, but that's only because there are 4-man pummeling him right now. One more auto attack will be enough. Icy is going to be able to pick that kill up for himself, but he might be punished. Does manage to get the jump away at the last second. If that chain had landed, that would have been a dead AD carry, but it is anyway, because Drools throws out the super mega death rocket. And that certainly was a super mega death coming out from Icy there.
So that's going to be 1-for-1 overall. Draws being able to capitalize on the somewhat mispositioning from Icy returns them a kill, and now we're reaching this 20-minute mark. You have to remember that when you're playing against a Kindred, her Baron control is ridiculously strong as Ped is forced to flash away. The Lantern was available for him there. I think he could have gotten out of that one, but unfortunately he is forced to burn that summoner spell. So advantage really gained all across the map for NUEL, and they are in a good position to start prepping for this Baron.
They are indeed, and the big purple worm has finally spawned onto the map. And we'll see if the NUEL are going to be able to go for that early Baron. We saw them get a 21-minute Baron in the first game of this series. They're definitely a team that is going to be happy to go for that kind of early objective, and we'll see if they decide to repeat that. They have the Callista to work with. Once again, you've got that Blade of the Rune King. We'll see whether they do opt to try and go for that early objective. Currently, Drools on the bottom side of the map, so not something that they can go for immediately, but certainly could be on the horizon for them if they can maybe find a pick or just find a positional advantage.
The biggest problem for XL right now is that Victorio is super tanky, and they don't really have the damage to get through Victorio. And on top of that, even if you do, you have a Soraka supporting him from the back line, as well as the Lamb's Respite. So it just comes back to the fact that XL are going to really struggle to actually kill anyone unless they can get these picks off. And with the composition they're running, they're not actually great at getting picks. But we've already seen every time you try to get a pick against the NUEL, it just never really works out ever. So now with XL moving to the top lane to try and take away this tower, NUEL doing a very smart decision, rotating around to the mids, looking to put some pressure down onto this tier 2 tower.
Icy nearly just gets one comboed there by Ray and Mort, and that is going to secure this tier 2 tower in the mid lane. In the meantime, they trade tier 1 in top and bot, one going either way, so 2 tower advantage there to the NUEL coming out of that one. And now they're looking for this tier 2 in the bottom lane as well. Beautiful rotational play coming out. We'll see if they're going to be able to secure this objective. Everybody from XL charging on down to try and protect this one as fast as possible. And actually we see Billy is pushing down in or up in that top lane at the same time. And it looks like this one is going to be defended. Billy going to back away as well. And it looks like no more towers will be going down unless the NUEL want to continue this push.
Yeah, it's they could look to continue sieging onto this tower. They are in a relatively good position. And the poke continuously going to come out onto ped. That's half of his health gone immediately. And that's pretty rough for the side of XL. Rainwalk constantly looking for more and more. Poke takes another big hit.
Drawls hook though, but he flashes on out. Victorio now on this front line, tanking up the tower, but he is more than happy to. Shaven Tortoise is tanking the tower now. He needs to use that Lamb's Respite, and he has. Equalizer comes across, and with the Death Ray, that is going to melt down the tree. Finally able to cut that one down. Lumberjack Billy on the case, but now he's being chunked down himself as Raymort trying to finish this one off. There's the Mega Death Rocket. Drawls picks himself up a double kill, and in the meantime, Icy falls out of nowhere. The NUEL pick themselves up an ace in trade for just one kill.
And it's this combination of the Shaven Tortoise's Lamb Respite followed with the constant support from Mazrim. You saw there that Victorio just dived under the tower without a single concern. He had that ultimate available to him. He was just sitting in the Lamb's Respite absolutely fine. And because the Rumble wasn't even near the fight, by the time he does join, Mazrim just sitting on the backline, he heals everybody back up, and that allows Drawls to then clean up the fight. Big fight going over in the favour of the NUEL. They're going to extend their gold lead to 9,000, and this could look to be NUEL maybe taking the series 2-1. And who would have thought this? You know, brand new team coming out to try and secure their spot. They were mainly hoping to defeat XL, TCA, and Team Pariah to get that top seed in the bottom half of the bracket. And with a performance like this, they very well look to pull that one off. But you know, the game's not over yet. While XL are in a very big disadvantage, they still have options available to them. We'll have to see whether or not they can turn things around. Just right now, things are not looking good for them.
They are not indeed. And I mean, we spoke about Baron when it spawned 4 minutes ago. We were like, we've seen the NUEL go for early Barons in game 1. It's definitely something they could opt to go for. But instead of just going for the early Baron this time, obviously XL were well aware that that was a scenario that could play out. Instead, they just siege the bottom lane, take the bottom inhibitor, and now they have so much global pressure from those super minions that they should be able to just take this Baron away with relative ease now.
Yeah, it's known as the Baron inhibitor for a reason, because you have to send someone down there to deal with it. And it's just, what a great performance coming out from the NUEL. You know, they recognize that they have the mid-game power spike with the LeBlanc, with the support from Mazrim on this Soraka, and because of the Blade of the Ruin King that was completed for Shaven Tortoise, they were just in a very good position. They could look to take any team fight that XL wanted to start, and the best way to start a team fight is look to set up a siege, and you tend not to realize how easy it actually is for Victoria and Shaven Tortoise to set up a dive with that Lamb's Respite available to you. So very well played from NUEL, recognizing what they need to do to win, executing their comp perfectly, and right now they're in a great position to try and take this Baron away.
Yeah, I was about to say Ray and Mort getting chunked down by that Baron, that could be a difference in the fight, but then Mazrim. So they're going to be perfectly fine with that one. Clearing away vision where they can. Ray and Mort might have to jump back to his distortion pad here, but the rest of the team going to help him clear away that one. And that is going to be Baron completely blind now. Both members of XL that have gone to clear minions do have teleport available to them. Scrying Orb going to spot out that the NUEL are trying to start this objective off, and honestly, they don't look particularly afraid. Synergy looking to try and get this steal. I've seen Synergy get so many steals in the past. It's definitely a possibility, but the NUEL do decide to back away from the objective in the end.
Thing is, this is actually ridiculously smart from the NUEL, because notice that the bottom lane wasn't actually cleared out by Ped or Billy. Both of them have used their teleports to join the fight, and now all the NUEL have to do is dance around and allow the super minions to do their work. the problem for XL is they're in a catch-22 situation where they make one bad decision or another, and they have to decide which of the lesser evils they decide to take. NUEL playing this very, very smart around the Baron, and with XL backing off, they could look to just turn around and start it again.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is exactly what they're going to do. It is completely blind right now for Team XL, and it's already down to just a third of his HP. Synergy gonna have to look for the miracle still, and he's not gonna be able to find it. He's gonna drop as well. Equalizer lands onto Mazrin, but he keeps himself alive. And that is going to be disaster for XL. If they weren't behind enough already, they are now 9,000 gold behind, as well as having the Baron on the NUEL side. This is starting to look pretty scary for XL right now. The next push might just be game.
It could very well be. We've already seen how strong the push potential is from the NUEL side. And for XL to lose this would be a very big hit for them. They're looking to be one of the teams we believe to be one of the top contenders to be in the top of these bottom half of the brackets, you know? A lot of people had a lot of faith in them, and obviously they've had a few roster swaps. They had to bring in Synergy because Maldo was unavailable for them this weekend, and I feel as though the lack of Maldo really has hurt them. I felt that XL, one of their biggest problems in the past was their inability to make accurate decisions, and while Synergy hasn't necessarily been performing badly, he just hasn't really had the same sort of impact that Maldo was able to have in the past in their game versus XL. But you have to give credit to the NUEL. They've played their composition perfectly. When recognizing what your team composition needs to do and executing it takes a lot from a team. And their coach was telling me about how he was very impressed. Yeah, okay, they might not be the strongest laners, but their macro play is absolutely incredible. So if they can get ahead in the lane, they know exactly what to do with the lead. And at only 28 minutes, you can already see that they're knocking on the doors of the base, looking to take themselves a second inhibitor.
Yeah, absolutely. And just look at this souped up big boy creep. He's going to be sieging away at the tower. And XL are struggling to be able to take them down. They're relying on Ped's death rays to be able to finish off those siege minions. The inhibitor has now respawned though in the bottom lane. So XL, they don't currently have any super minions pushing on into their base. However, they do have a top lane inhibitor tower that is being hammered away by Drools, down to half HP now. And all the NUEL need to do is just continue this little dance that they're currently doing. Rainmore is caught though. Exabyte manages to survive the burst. The rocket falls shy, but nobody gonna go down. And in fact, Rainmore is still almost at full HP.
Soraka, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And while all that's going on, Shaven Tortoise just pushes down in the middle lane with those Baron empowered minions, takes down another tower, and that's going to be the third tower gone. All of the bases now exposed.
Yeah, it certainly is. Shaven Tortoise starting to hammer away on this inhibitor. XL starting to look a little bit lost. They're feeling a bit like a deer in headlights right now. Ped chunked incredibly low as Raymore flashes on out. Victorio tanking up the entire team, but he is more than happy to as Drools starts to go for the clear up. He's looking for the pentakill and he is going to find it. Incredible positioning from the AD carry. He cleans up the entire XL lineup, and that is going to be the series going over to the NUEL 2-1, and they get their first win of the season onto the board. Congratulations to the NUEL.
Mazrin, we wondered why you had this Soraka constantly banned against you, and we can see it right there. Having such a phenomenal impact in this series, doing what he can to keep his AD carry alive, and you saw right at the end there what happens if he's successfully able to keep his AD carry alive, being able to close out the series with a pentakill onto Drools. Very impressive performance from the NUEL. Somewhat of an upset, was not expecting this to go that way, but very impressive from the NUEL. GG going over to them.
Yeah, phenomenal play from the NUEL. Honestly, truly deserve this victory, I feel. They played out of their minds. Every single member stepped up as well. It wasn't like one player specifically was carrying them. They all stepped up to the plate and they managed to take the victory 2-1 to XL. XL, at this point, probably a little bit sick of hearing the words 2-1 at this stage, but we are going to head into a short break, but do not go anywhere, because if this was a match to watch out for, then our next one is, I mean, I don't even know what words to say. FM versus Choke, our very first top 14 versus top 14 matchup to be streamed. I'm excited to get my teeth into this one. We'll be back in just a few minutes.